Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're essentially putting the 2026 World Cup on the operating table. We're going to conduct a forensic investigation into what really looks like a fundamentally broken system. Based on the sources we're analyzing today, we'll see exactly how corporate greed and massive overexpansion are systematically stripping the magic away from the beautiful game's absolute biggest tournament. Okay, let's dive right into this. Way back in 2018, when the North American Committee submitted their bid to host, they made a very specific and honestly a really appealing promise. They said tickets would start at a minimum of $21 to create a People's World Cup. Sounds amazing, right? A tournament for everybody? But as our source material reveals, the brutal reality of the current ticketing landscape, it completely shatters that illusion. Just to put this into perspective, think back to the 2022 tournament. An ultra-premium Category 1 ticket for the final cost you $1,600. Now, yes, that is absolutely a ton of money, but it got you the absolute best seats in sporting history to witness Lionel Messi face off against Kylian Mbappe. Contrast that with the 2026 final. For the exact same Category 1 experience, you are looking at an asking price of $8,680. That is a shocking 7 times inflation for a single game of football. Just insane. Now, you might be thinking, well, okay, that's just the final. What about the regular group stage games? Well, this number right here, $165, that is the absolute cheapest ticket you can find for a low-demand group stage game. We're talking Ivory Coast against Curacao. Compare that to 2022, where a simple group stage match cost around $70. And if you actually want to see a high-demand game, say the US against Paraguay, our sources show that the absolute cheapest entry point skyrockets to an outrageous $767. Let's move to and see how this builds, because you have to wonder, how exactly did prices get so out of control? According to the data, the governing body has basically engineered 4 distinct revenue engines to artificially pump up these prices. First up, dynamic pricing, meaning prices surge in real time based on buyer interest. Second, an uncapped resale market. The official platform lets sellers list tickets way above face value, and the organizer double dips, charging a 15% fee to both the buyer and the seller. Third, expanded high demand from just having more national teams competing. And finally, expensive host nations. The US, Mexico, and Canada inherently carry very high tourist and travel costs. Let's look at what this actually means for a real fan. This is basically a brutal, itemized receipt based on a BBC report analyzing the projected costs for an English couple traveling to the US for the group stages. Travel and hotels alone, nearly £5,800. Tickets and resale costs, £3,500. Processing fees, over £500. Add in realistic survival costs for 14 nights, and you hit a staggering total of roughly $12,000. That is $6,400 per person. As this explainer highlights, that is literally an insurmountable financial wall for normal, everyday fans. Part 1. The diluted product format bloat. So fans are getting financially drained, but what are they actually paying to see? Expanding the tournament from its classic 32 teams to a massive 48 brings us to this number, 40. By jumping to 48 teams, the tournament is adding 40 extra matches. The source material argues this isn't for the love of the game, it is strictly for cash. Adding 40 more matches vastly increases broadcasting and ticketing revenue, but it heavily dilutes the rarity and prestige of the competition. Suddenly, a team can reach the newly created round of 32 just by winning once, or maybe even just drawing twice. Now, what's really interesting about this next concept is a term emerging from the tactical data: Haram Ball. With more low-tier teams entering the competition, our source warns of matches totally dominated by ultra-defensive tactics, played for a full 90 minutes just to secure a lucky draw or scrape by on penalties. I mean, imagine scraping together thousands of dollars for a ticket, flying across the world, only to watch a team like Uzbekistan sit back and register exactly 1 shot on target for the entire match. No way. And it actually gets worse for the players themselves. We're looking at an impending 8-game burnout. To win the tournament, a team now needs to play 8 games instead of 7. Combine this with the recently expanded Champions League format, and you've got exhausted, injury-prone players coming off a brutal 2-year calendar. When you force severely fatigued athletes to play for 39 days straight in an extended tournament, you're inevitably going to get sluggish, slow play, and a massive drop in the quality of the pressing. It's just a recipe for exhaustion.
Part 2. The cultural autopsy, loss of identity.
So, we've covered the financial and physical toll, but what about the tournament's soul? Notice the stark visual contrast in the branding here. The incredibly detailed logos from 2014 and 2018 represented unity, space exploration, and rich cultural history, with shapes mimicking traditional Matryoshka dolls and Fabergé eggs. Now, compare that to the 2026 logo. It's just bland, minimalist text. It's literally the number 2026 slapped over a basic photo of the trophy. As the source bluntly puts it, it represents absolutely nothing. It looks like it was designed by a 4-year-old. The official music suffers the exact same fate. Let's compare the anthems, because this is wild. We all remember Shakira's Waka Waka. It authentically sampled traditional Zangala, deeply represented African culture, and actually celebrated the host nation. Fast forward to the 2026 promotional track, Lighter. The source notes that trying to represent the US, Mexico, and Canada all at once has resulted in a safe, AI-sounding commercial track that honestly feels more fitting for a Gillette or Ford commercial. I mean, the lyrics literally go, "Never felt this free before, I'm high and I'm getting higher, chains don't rattle no more, good lord, I'm feeling lighter." By trying to represent absolutely everybody, they've ended up with a sterile, completely soulless product. Part 3. The logistical nightmare, continental sprawl. So, the crucial point is this. Even if you can somehow afford the extortionate tickets, and even if you don't mind the diluted football and bland branding, can you actually physically get there? Let's start with this very sobering number, 39. To enter U.S. soil as a foreigner, obviously you need a visa. Objectively speaking, based on the current regulations highlighted in our source, visa issuance is suspended or highly restricted for nationals of 39 specific countries, and there are 0 exceptions being made for football fans. This means millions of fans, even if they somehow secure a ticket, are literally blocked from entering the country. You could see several national teams walk out onto the pitch with practically 0 traveling supporters. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive geographic hurdle. When Qatar or Germany hosted the tournament, fans were navigating compact nations. You could easily and pretty cheaply just hop on a local train between cities. But 2026 is a tournament of massive continental sprawl. Supporters are going to be forced into taking incredibly expensive cross-country flights just to follow their teams from state to state or even country to country. When you combine this massive geography with the dynamic pricing and ticket scams we discussed earlier, you've got the ultimate recipe for fan betrayal. Which brings us to a final philosophical question I want to leave you with. When you try to make everybody like you, do you lose the thing that made a few truly love you? By constantly overexpanding, adding 40 more matches, maximizing those revenue streams with $8,680 tickets, and diluting the cultural soul of the event with minimalist branding, the organizers seem to have forgotten one very basic rule. Things that are rare are more valuable. The intense passion, the accessible magic, and the elite rarity that made this tournament the greatest show on Earth are being systematically dismantled. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. What do you think? Will you still be tuning in for 2026, or has the magic already faded? Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.